A lot of times people come in for counseling to deal with anger issues, and it may be anger towards a loved one, somebody else in their family, or they're just having issues where they act out in anger towards coworkers and things like that of that nature. Also, anger, if not handled properly, can be very destructive in relationships. So one of the things we strive to do at Samaritan's Well is to help people first identify where the anger is coming from. One thing I work on as a counselor is to help them look at anger a lot of times as a primary emotion that we see. Underneath that anger oftentimes are issues of feeling hurt, frustrated, and fearful. So what I have discovered is if I can get the client to talk about the underlying issues, a lot of times it can dissipate some of the anger that's being expressed. So one of the things we do is first of all have them identify the underlying feeling that's going on, and then teach them more appropriate ways to deal with their anger. For instance, if they're lashing out at family members or their spouse, obviously that's going to be very destructive over the long haul. So one thing we'll do is maybe teach assertion skills, as opposed to some people are very aggressive and it gets their feelings out, but it has a very negative effect on the loved ones around them. Second thing, way that people deal with anger a lot of times is just to stuff it and not talk about it and not deal with it. That also can be very destructive. So teaching them basic things like being able to say what their needs are, being able to acknowledge the underlying feelings, and then also to practice using assertive skills can make a huge difference in helping someone deal with their initial anger. Another thing that occurs is in the Bible, it talks about we are a verse in Ephesians that says that we are to be angry and sin not. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And then also the last part of that verse says, do not give the devil a foothold. And so what I try to teach people is that being angry in itself is not a sin. It's oftentimes how we choose to deal with that anger that can become sinful if it's not treated properly. In other words, if our anger is over the things that are upsetting and contrary to Scripture, that's kind of a healthy anger to have. However, if we go the other extreme and I'm angry because somebody's mistreated me or I felt shortchanged, then that can be problematic. So I try to make the distinction between righteous anger, which is what is upsetting to God, and then also individual anger, and I think there's a reason it says do not give the devil a foothold, because once that anger sets in and we don't deal with it appropriately, it can lead to resentment. And I've often found that resentment can actually destroy you more than the other person. When we choose not to forgive and not to let go of past hurts, that anger a lot of times turns into resentment. And you may have heard this before, but the analogy that when we don't deal with our anger appropriately, it's like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. So I really strive to help my clients work through the issues of anger, get a better understanding of why they get angry in situations, help them identify what's underneath that anger, the primary feelings, and then lastly teach them practical skills where they can better handle and deal with their anger.